Welcome back to the Bionicle Inspiration Series. We spotlight mocks from across the community to give you a bit of inspiration. And today, I want to focus on Bionicle mocks that use a little bit or a lot of system pieces in them. And we're going to just talk about the idea of combining Bionicle pieces with system pieces, because it's a very valuable skill to be able to play with and to have in your utility belt as you're building with your Bionicle parts and making construction mocks. And certainly today, there's a lot more system parts out there than there are construction parts out there, just because there really isn't that much construction going around in modern LEGO themes. So if you can play with some of those pieces, it gives you a lot more stuff that you can do, and it gets more exciting because you can play with newer pieces that are coming out in brand new sets and include them in your construction mocks. So let's take a look at some system and Bionicle stuff today on the Bionicle Inspiration Series. The first mock we have today is by Ezreal, and this is Gemini of the Dwarf Stars. Now, I think this is a really good example of specific system pieces that just perfectly blend with other CCBS or Bionicle style parts. So for example, we can see these larger cone pieces here. Here it is on Bricklink. These are being used on the arm design, and I think the texture of these pieces just works so flawlessly with other Bionicle parts that are used on this mock. So for example, some other Bionicle pieces that are here are these Star Wars Ultra Build Shin pieces. Again, here it is on Bricklink. And actually these flow pretty well into some other Bionicle parts, these white larger tooth pieces. Well, they're either white or black, depending on which mock you're looking at, I guess, but those flow very nicely just the way they've been partnered on the leg design there. I think that's a great, nice kind of combination of pieces for the leg design there. But yeah, consistent textures across those pieces and the system piece I was talking about before, I think they go a long way. We can also see on the foot design, some of these curved slope pieces are used. Once again, pretty consistent textures all throughout all those different pieces that I've covered so far. And actually, great foot design as well. Really simple and effective. Only a couple pieces there, but it works. And it's those consistent textures that make it work so well. And actually, there's a few other different curved slope pieces all throughout this. There's a lot on the torso or the sort of waist area specifically. They're in slightly larger sizes and things like that, but just in general, curved slopes are a really good kind of go-to piece to have for your Bionicle creations. And we'll see a few more of those curved slope pieces throughout this episode, but definitely a piece that I would recommend ordering some if you don't have any, and playing around with them with your other Bionicle pieces. They're very, very helpful, as we see here. So some boat studs are also being used. These are boat studs specifically. They're called boat studs because they're often at the bottom of boats, and they add that sort of smooth texture to them so you can glide them across like a floor or something in your house if you're playing with them. But these are being used on the leg design and the arm design on the elbows or the knees specifically, and this makes for a really great articulated limb design there, and keeps that smooth, because sometimes that can be a little bit too kind of strange looking if you're doing a more ball and socket connection, but that's a great way to, again, keep those textures consistent. And I think that's such an important thing to focus on with your system and your Bionicle pieces, because sometimes they can look pretty alien from one another and it just won't gel. But if you can make them gel like this mock does, it's going to look really, really good. So lovely work, Ezreal. Up next, the All-Seeing Eye has built a tower of sand, and this is still a work in progress, but it still looks cool, and there's still a lot we can talk about it. So I think this is a nice example of using system pieces on a mock to add little bits of detail or kind of fill in some gaps. So we can see on the base of these tan mutter feet that are being used on this mock that there's some system cheese slope pieces that are filling in the sort of empty hole that's at the front of a mutter foot piece. Simple but really effective way of just rounding that part off and better integrating it with the rest of the overall design of this character. It's a small thing, but I think it goes a long way. We also see some 1x1 plate pieces in tan, and these are filling in the gap in the center of these slightly smaller upper leg pieces here, these kind of prefab limb elements. And I also think that's great. Again, another very minimal design, but it just fills in those gaps, and suddenly that little pop of tan ties us in with the rest of the mock, and it allows this design to be, you can kind of get away with a more minimal design just by adding in those little system pieces there and making it look a little less boring instead of it just being, oh, I slapped on one piece for the upper legs, whatever, it's done. You put that in and suddenly it's a lot better. I just really like that. We also have some great curved slope pieces, like the ones we were talking about before. They're on the torso here in tan and sand blue. And there's a sticker on the sand blue piece as well. And I I actually really like stickers. I know in the past I've said I hated stickers in LEGO sets. Sometimes stickers would be better off printed in certain LEGO sets, but I think stickers are a really valuable thing to have in your collection, especially when you're building. Because like here, you just put a cool little numbered sticker on the front there, and it's the perfect finishing touch. It just adds such a nice little something something. So cool. So definitely have a look at LEGO sets and what stickers they have, or keep the stickers from your previous LEGO sets. And see what you can do with them when you put them in your creations. And stickers appeared a lot more on system sets than they did on Bionicle sets, so it's certainly worth looking into. Now, I mentioned that this is a work in progress. I believe the only thing that's left with this is painting that mask, but I'm excited to see this when it's 100% done with paint or any other details that are needed there, because that custom mask looks really cool. I think it works with the rest of this character, but it'll work even better when it's painted. So looking forward to seeing this when it's all finished up. Very, very cool. Let's move over now to the next mark. This is by Jafer, and this is Crimson Mountain Drake. So this is a very system-heavy creation, and it only uses a few construction parts, but it still does use some, specifically like the fur around the neck. But yeah, we can still learn a lot from system-heavy mocks, so let's dive in. I love the face design here. Now, it uses a mouthpiece from this Teal Ninjago Dragon set, which is a great set, and teal's an awesome color. Such a good set if you can still find it on shelves. A lot of these Ninjago dragons now, they actually come with a lot of unique head designs, specifically the jaw elements as well. They're often different on each of the specific dragons. And they often are just really good pieces, especially for head designs like this. So if you want to do something like Jafer has done here and use that jaw piece there with the really unique teeth on it, you can create something that suddenly has this really striking and unique design. All the teeth on this jaw piece jutting out in weird directions creates a slightly goofy look, but also a nice kind of menacing, mouth design. So integrating into this custom head here that's built with all sorts of different individual Lego pieces and things, it works really well and has a lot of personality to it. So for sure, look into the jaws and head designs of Ninjago dragons and the jaws and head designs of other, Lego sets that exist out there. I mean, even some of like the animal pieces and things like that, the jaws on them could be quite helpful. And you can create something awesome like this. And if you are creating a custom head design, some advice that I saw the other day, which I think is very helpful, start on the eyes if you're building a custom head design, because, they say the eyes are the window to the soul, all of that. Eyes can often have so much emotion and reflect so much character. So really sort of beginning with that and allowing the eyes to kind of set the scale of what you're building as well. That's something that's going to help you if you really want to pack in a lot of character into your creation. And I think this has a lot of character too. And I think, again, a lot of that's down to the jaw and the eye design specifically. So yeah, really, really cool. We can also see even more of these curved slope pieces I've been talking about on the limbs here. And this is just another example of how nice that can look here, because those limbs work very well. And the majority of it is just curved slopes. Really cool. We also see a bunch of these Exoforce robot arm pieces in dark red and brown on the torso. I talk about these all the time on the show. Such a helpful, good piece. They've appeared in both system and Bionicle sets, so it kind of blurs the line of what you specifically classify that as, but you can still get them today in system sets as well. So a very helpful piece, and man, they look so cool repeated like that, making up the bulk of this belly and back design. So cool. What an awesome character build from Jafer. He always packs so much personality into his builds. This looks phenomenal. Now onto a mock by MC Lego Boy, and this is Mars Mission Macro Figure. So wheels. I love how the bulk of the limbs here are made out of a bunch of wheel pieces. I feel like the texture on those wheels really effectively nails the look of a spacesuit, and it just looks really cool. So if you have any tires or wheels or any of that sort of stuff, definitely consider them for your construction creations. I mean, we actually saw a wheel piece being used on the All-Seeing Eyes mock before on the torso. So they're a very effective piece to have around, whether you want to use them for limbs or a torso design like that. There's a lot of nice uses for them. So yeah, great example here of just how cool that can look. I also enjoy seeing some of these crystals on the floor here. I think anytime you add little system accessories or even some Bionicle brick build accessories, just sort of standing next to the mock when you photograph it, it's a great way of establishing a larger world that the character exists in. And it's just a bit of fun. It's just a bit more context. It's just cool. So that's a nice inclusion of some system parts there. But the best inclusion is this seaweed vine piece here. It really looks like alien goo, especially the way that it's kind of being held up there, and the natural kind of curved flowing lines of this specific piece, it looks exactly like goo that's just sort of flowing all over the place and looking gross. What a lovely, clever part use there. Just does a lot for the character here. So cool. Definitely consider accessories and tires on your next Bionicle mock that uses some system pieces. This is a mock by ShadowGear6335 now, and this is Kairos. So when you think about system pieces, I think oftentimes they're very small, or they're super detailed, really pretty, and often very colorful. And I think this is a awesome example of adding a bunch of system pieces to create a really ancient, ornate, and really pretty amount of detail on a Bionicle character. So I think this kind of reminds me of like a cathedral of sorts. It looks ancient, it looks like it's been carved, and there's some sort of ornate work that's been put into this, and the character itself looks very godlike and very powerful, and I think the high level of detail really helps reflect that. So if that's a look that you're going for, why not pack in a whole bunch of system pieces, especially a whole bunch of gold system pieces, which there's a good whack of them, especially in your Ninjago sets. Gold's a very common color. So yeah, if that's a look you're going for, you can very easily achieve it with a bunch of different system pieces, and it looks great. Some cool pieces that are included here in all this wonderful detail include these gold Ninjago spinners. They appeared in a bunch of other colors, but they're used here in gold specifically. And because of the huge size of this creation, it's wonderful to see such a big and, I guess, very specific piece as well. It's kind of harder to use because it was designed for a very specific purpose. Seeing it here right at home as this kind of sleeve of sorts on this arm design is really, really nice. It's also great to see some of these gold wing pieces on the torso. Those are certainly a very clever part to use because they naturally have that very ornate look to them, and when they're used in this context, it looks like some sort of curved detail on stonework or something like that. And also on the torso is this trans pink cockpit piece. Now this is from the Sweet Mayhem Starship from the LEGO Movie 2 set, one of the coolest sets from the LEGO Movie 2 range of sets because of the beautiful colors in that set, and it was a really nice design as well. But that specific cockpit piece here is used on the torso in a great way. It kind of looks like some sort of energy core or heart light on the torso. Really do like how that appears here. Good part use for sure. Oh, and of course there's a bunch of pink studs on various parts of this creation, and it kind of reminds me of like an hourglass with sand running through it or something like that. It's just a unique design and it looks cool, and it's all thanks to just pouring a bunch of system pieces in there. And that would be something that's pretty easy to get. You can often find studs on a pick-a-brick wall in your local LEGO store. So you could easily do something fairly similar there for a decent enough price if you fill up your pick-a-brick cup well. But still, awesome creation by ShadowGear. Love the intimidating presence of this character. Lemonade now has built a mock called Rita Rondo, and this is cool because system pieces are used to build some lovely landscape for a stand for this mock to, I guess, stand on. And while the landscape is lovely, it's very well built and adds some nice context to the creature character build here. It's also cool because these trees act as a sort of support system so that they can have these floating hands and have these kind of invisible limbs that support them, I suppose. That's a cool design. You don't really see that being used all that often, but that's a very clever way of approaching that. So it's nice to know that, hey, actually these hands are pretty system focused, but these very system focused tree designs here are supporting them. So a lot of different uses for your system pieces. Some other good system pieces in here include a bunch of dishes. They're used on the top of the hands, and there's two of them, one for the head and one for sort of, I guess, the chest area on the torso. It's lovely to see how well those are integrated in with other CCBS pieces, especially that sort of repeated pattern of two of those white CCBS shells flowing into two of those dishes. They work well together there. So dish pieces are pretty helpful parts to have, and definitely something to consider if you want to be integrating system more into your Bionicle characters. And finally, Patrick Biggs has built Riot Flea 016. So we got ourselves a mock with an epic pink keytar. I love that. What a perfect accessory for a super rock and roll robot with a mohawk. The perfect accessory for it. And again, you just couldn't build that with Bionicle pieces. You need your system parts for that. And what an awesome design there, especially using some of those grill tile pieces there for the piano keys. So cool. There's also a bunch of these gold ring pieces, another system piece, of course. Now, these are used as, I guess, armbands or jewelry, but you could also just say there's some nice kind of gold finishings that round off the different limbs on this MOC. And I love these. They're a slightly newer piece. I guess they started to come out when Black Panther, the first one, came out. But man, I'm seeing so many different people in the Bionicle community start to integrate them into their MOCs. And Patrick does it with actually a fair few of his different creations, so be sure to check the links in the description and see some of the other incredible builds that Patrick has done and other incredible ways that he's integrated those pieces, because they just work really well. It's just a great way of adding in a slight pop of color or a bit of extra detail, or wrapping them around CCBS pieces and limbs and things, and it just works. It works really well, actually. So a great inclusion and a great piece to keep an eye out for if you don't have it in your collection, because like we can see here, it's a lovely finishing touch. I also enjoy this face design. It uses some of these toe ball pieces, which can be easily integrated with your mixel joints, and I didn't even touch upon mixel joints in this episode, but such a helpful ball and socket system that very easily integrates with system pieces because it's designed to, but it still works pretty well for your construction stuff too, and there is some nice kind of crossover that you can do with those pieces. But if you don't want to use them as actual ball and socket pieces, you can use them as awesome eyes here on this head design here that looks just phenomenal. And combining it with the mohawk, it really is a fantastic custom built head design here. So well done, Patrick, on a fantastic MOC, and well done to all the builders in this episode today, because you not only built some cool stuff that showcased some great ways of integrating system into Bionicle characters, but also you might have noticed all these people are the mods on the Discord server, and I wanted to do this episode as a nice thank you to all the awesome work that they do in monitoring the Discord server, and also just being really nice people that have been very kind to me. If I've ever physically met them or spoken to them on Discord or whatever, they've just been very kind people. So big thank you for being awesome in many different ways. This is my gift to you. If I could do more, I would. But hey, you're awesome people. Thank you very much. I reckon the next episode, what I'm going to do is go to the new member social media channel on the Discord server, and just pick out some of the links from the different builders that are on there and then feature them in an episode. So a very similar concept to this one, but just slightly tweaking it there. So yeah, if you want to be in that specific member social media channel on the Discord server, all you have to do is message me or one of the mods on the Discord server, and we'll add your social media to that specific page there. And then a bunch of people are going to have very quick, easy access to your stuff. So good way of getting a little bit of shameless self-promotion there. Nothing wrong with that. So yeah, I think that's the plan for next week. I'll see you then. Happy building, and bye for now.